happening now. We want to welcome our viewers from across the United States and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room. Good morning, good day, good evening. This is EdTech Situation Room, episode number 334 on August 29th, 2024. My name is Jason Neiffer. I'm the Executive Director of the Montana Digital Academy, which is Montana State Virtual School located on the beautiful University of Montana campus right here in fabulous Western Montana, the heart of Western Montana, Missoula, Montana. And joining me tonight, as always, another short sleeve shirt logo wearing guy. Between the two of us, we kind of look like we're going to sell you some windows or something. Dr. Wesley Fryer, how are you tonight, sir?
I am good, Jason. I feel like you do such a good job marketing your part of the country. So I'm Wes Fryer, a middle school teacher at Providence Day School in lovely Charlotte, North Carolina, where summer has come back for a little while, but we'll be back into the cool highs in the 70s next week. And I'm told by those who've lived here longer that this is the usual pattern for us. But I am teaching web design and coding and computer apps or media literacy this year, and absolutely loving it and thankful to have a 3-day weekend and be looking forward to a little adventuring in Colorado and seeing our daughter at the Air Force Academy tomorrow night at this time. But I'm excited, Jason, that we could reschedule because, we've got some busy lives, but we've actually got Peggy George. No, Peggy, it's not a sunburn. I've got this, maybe it's just this light. I don't know, these weird lights. I've got yellow lights, so yeah, it looks like I'm sunburned. Maybe I need to adjust my what is this, X split VCam. Maybe I need to ratchet down my color factor. I think that probably actually is what it is.
And it's funny because I'm also using that, but I look washed out by it, or maybe I am washed out. I don't know.
Well, there's these like adjustments. Thanks for saying that, actually, because I didn't notice this. There's these enhanced lighting, and there's like a color factor and a gamma factor. So yeah, it looked like I was pretty much laying on the tanning bed all day, but I really wasn't. I was teaching school. So there we go. All right. Well, hey, what's going to be up for tonight? And Peggy, I'm so excited you're here. So even with the changed schedule from our normal Wednesday night, you're here. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, we're going to take a look at some news from across the techosphere and hope to kind of shoot through an educational prism, maybe to give some insights about where our world may be going. And tonight's topics are AI, Microsoft, Apple, Google, some higher education chit-chat. Subscription world is a topic that I am going to speak to, social media, podcasting, and then one tonight with our Geeks of the Week. Dr. Fryer, is there anything in particular you want to start with tonight?
Oh gosh! Again, you have done the lion's share of the articles, so I suppose I could, give my so far lone article. I'll put a few more in. Let's talk about podcasting. Did you know that YouTube is the? Oh, my video is frozen. Did you know that YouTube is eclipsed Apple as the lead podcasting tool of? That's because I quit XSplit VCam. Sorry, folks. In attempting to adjust my gamma, I have quit my video app. Yes, this is an article. Sorry. All right, here we go. There we go. I'm back. Westwood One, not necessarily one of my number one listen to I remember people talking about Westwood One. I don't know if I actually heard this. I'm sure I heard it on a podcast. In 2021, YouTube was the third most accessed destination for podcasts. In 2022, it tied Spotify. Now, across 3 studies in 2023 and 2024, YouTube is pulled away from the pack and leads as the most used podcast audience platform in the United States. And ladies and gentlemen, anticipating this, as you may know, we have made our EdTech Situation Room into a podcast, because one way to do that is to designate a playlist that you have on your channel and say, this is my podcast. So anyway, I thought that was quite interesting. And I actually need to figure out what I'm going to do with my Speed of Creativity podcast that I've had since 2005, because I've still had a fairly cumbersome and step-intensive process of getting that published. And so I thought this was good to know. And it's also, I think it's important to be on multiple platforms. I like podcasts, of course, that are not tied to a specific platform, that are an exclusive. But I don't know. Does that surprise you? You're a big YouTube consumer, are you not, Dr. Neiffer?
I am a big YouTube consumer, but what's interesting about this development is that I don't consider YouTube a podcast player. I don't even consider Spotify a podcast player. I use a third-party app. It's currently Playcast, which I've been using for 6-7 years.
No, wait, Pocket Cast
I'm sorry. Yes, Pocket Cast. Why did I say Pocket Cast?
Okay, I thought maybe you were jumping into a new one. I needed to check.
No. Pocket Cast is my preferred app. So much so that I was paying for, or I paid for the app. The weird Mac bubbles are popping up on the screen. So I paid for the app initially, and then I paid for a lifetime subscription to the app, and they moved to a monthly model, and they said, we'll give it to you for like $10 a year. And I said, that's still a steal. And then they had some complaints about people that bought lifetime licenses about having to pay. So it's back to zero again. But every dime I spent for podcasts has been absolutely worth it, because it allows you the opportunity to manage your podcast, right? Like you have all the subscriptions in a location. You can log in on any device and see everything. And I feel like that's just not really the way YouTube works. It's not really the way Spotify works in regards to, what it's going to do for you in the podcast management part. So maybe that's just me as a super podcast nerd, but it's only surprising to me because I don't know, like I wouldn't even think of YouTube for listening to a podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely consuming more YouTube. For a while there, I was a YouTube Premium subscriber and really enjoyed that. I don't know if we talked about uBlock Origin, but with the new VMast 3 standard, one of the things, and this may be a very big reason that YouTube has done it, they are, fighting to make everybody see the ads and not skip them. And the uBlock Origin extension for Chrome and Firefox has been highly effective in blocking all ads. But there really hasn't been a way to do that I know of, other than it doesn't block them. If you play YouTube Premium, YouTube's happy, they get money, and you don't see the ads. So anyway, we're continuing to contemplate our subscription options. And my wife is, she's got multiple YouTube folks that she just loves to watch. And it's very interesting. I remember when YouTube came out in 2006. Who's going to ever watch that? That's going to be so silly. Who wants to see these homemade videos? So Peggy says she dropped her YouTube Premium recently as well. It's expensive. I mean, I think it's like $18 or whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's not expensive, but they all add up. So
yeah.
And when you
use YouTube too, right? I mean, like for me, it's worth it. And I've been paying for YouTube Premium for some time now. And in fact, I think I'm grandfathered into a cheaper price per month, which definitely helps me want to stay in that architecture. But I mean, it's really where you spend your media time. And I probably watch more YouTube than anything else. I also have gotten so away from advertised based anything really, because I only watch streaming. I'm willing to pay to get out of ads on streaming. So when I watch live broadcast TV that's got ads in it, it's actually kind of jarring when you're kind of back to that space. But with the amount of YouTube that I consume, which is quite a bit, I have a lot of nonfiction programming I watch on there that amuses me quite a bit. And it is interesting, but not as podcast app.
Yep, absolutely. All right, where to next, sir?
Let's see. Let's do some. Let's talk about Apple has announced that on September 10th, they will debut new stuff. So they have an event on that day, and what is likely up is probably iPhones, update iPhones. So the iPhone 16, wait, is that what we're on now?
I don't know.
Wow, how did you and I forget that?
I think I have a 13. But I think there's a 14. So is it the new?
I think this is a 15. So the 16 is the new iPhone. And I'll admit that I think I have a benefit through T-Mobile that I wouldn't have to pay anything to upgrade. I basically get it for free, and then just continue to make monthly payments as I am now with my iPhone. The bottom line is that the battery life on here is really tanked in the last 2 months. So. And I was looking at my battery stats the other day. The health is already down to 91 after a year. and it says battery health normal, but I'm just noticing a real lack of whole day coverage now with it. So I don't know, we'll see. But also included are watches, and AirPods, and some people suspect there may be some announcements on some of the chipsets that will be released, later this year, or next year. But for now, for sure, new devices. So, any chance that you're in the upgrading mood, Dr. Fryer?
Oh, other members of our family are going to be ahead of me in line for that because I
No.
was the one who upgraded sooner. I would honestly be interested in a more privacy-oriented device. I remember probably years ago we talked about, I don't know, some kind of Android black phone or something, and it was designed to, optimize privacy and just, oh gosh, we have so much data collected from us all the time. I know that's been normalized, but anyway, I would be interested in that. But no, I'm very happy with my iPhone, and we'll probably, I think, well, actually, one of our children, our middle child Sarah, had never had a new iPhone. She had always just inherited one, and so she had a screen damage situation, and we helped her get her first new one. So anyway, it's like, at what point? I still have all of our kids are on our plan, right? So I mean, it's so cheap to keep it there. But anyway, are you? So if you don't get the new one, though, will you discontinue your what are you on, the perpetual new iPhone plan, basically?
Yeah, and I thought I was on an every other year thing, and as it turns out, I'm on an every year thing. So I'll check it out. I mean, the only thing I'm disappointed in this device is the battery life, and I'm also noticing that I'm having problems sometimes while I'm on the cell signal for data. That it just doesn't work, and it's super slow or doesn't work at all. And if I restart the phone, it'll start working. But I was at a concert last night, and my coverage was just, I mean, I had 5 bars, but it's so slow, and I wonder if that could have been an overloaded tower. There was thousands of people in the crowd. I don't know, but I'm very happy with the phone other than battery life.
Yeah. Then in the chat, Peggy made a comment about classes, and I'll drop in the link. We have to market our classes, and so I made some marketing videos last year. And anyway, it's fun. I'm so happy to be teaching things that I'm loving. All right, any more Apple stuff or?
Yeah, there's an interesting article on 9to5Mac last week talking about how Siri is likely to become a lot more intelligent with the integration of Apple AI. And this article caught my eye just because Siri is just not a factor for me anymore, because I never think to use it because it doesn't work very well. And this is a phenomenon I've been tracking since Siri was the center of my doctoral work in 2017 and 2018. But the bottom line is that even the basic tasks that used to be easy for Siri to pull off, it just doesn't do a very good job at. It can't seem to figure out which device I'm at, so it always is on a device. It can't show me anything, can't tell me anything. It tells me to go turn on your phone, and sometimes it sends a link to me, and sometimes it doesn't. And things that it really should be able to do, it can't. And so I'm really excited about this prospect. I do think I have, this is a 15 Pro, so I think this does qualify for a local device Apple Intelligence. So I'm super excited about that.
Because that is the thing. You've got to be on, at this point, one of the latest 2 hardware platforms in order to have Apple Intelligence, which I think counts me out with my 13.
Yeah. And, it's not like I would lack artificial intelligence access if I didn't get it on my phone, right? I really have it very, very, very available throughout my computing life. But the bottom line is that if it can make Siri more powerful, having it integrated would be very, very interesting to me, because I just feel like that. Well, I think Google's Assistant is much further ahead from a functional phone standpoint than as opposed to Siri.
Yeah. Well, I'm totally ready for that, because ChatGPT has spoiled me so much. And this past summer, I had so many conversations using the iPhone version of ChatGPT. I did have a conversation about sort of rolling my own smart speaker system. And ChatGPT, I haven't pursued it, but I need to go back to that conversation because ChatGPT had said, yes, you can have your own smart speaker system. You can use Raspberry Pi. You can have it not rely on the cloud. And what I want is to be able to talk to ChatGPT. And I know I'm not alone in that. So it will be interesting to see if there was, if folks are working on those kind of projects. And anyway, that's not going to be top of my mind this fall, but it is a project that I would enjoy, I think, doing. And, I'm not planning on a sustained power loss, but it is, we have over 30 something devices on the network here at the house. And so, oh my gosh, we'd have to flip light switches by hand if, the power was down. I guess the power was down. We're not going to turn light switches on. I was thinking of internet. We had internet cut. We finally got fiber pulled to our neighborhood, which I'm really excited about. And some people were not as excited. But when we got that in Oklahoma, it was about half the cost and way, way faster and synchronous both ways. It was like 300 up and down or something crazy. So anyway, I hope that Apple has not made a play yet in the AI world, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do, because when they do enter the domain like that, they usually do pretty well because they've gone to school on what other people have done. So, but it sounds like they're going to license ChatGPT. So.
Yeah, and in fact, I didn't throw this article in, but I saw a headline earlier today about how Apple is courting OpenAI to invest in their company. So that's super interesting, because that means Microsoft and Amazon and Apple are all invested in OpenAI, despite all having vested interest in doing something themselves.
And that says quite a bit when you have players that don't typically work together and collaborate, all interested in this company. And it also speaks to the difficulty of new folks coming on the scene, right? Because the size and scale of these AI server farms and these operations is just incredible, which, by the way, does not appear to be sustainable energy consumption wise. We cannot exponentially grow the energy that we're needing to consume too many times, right? Because you start to double, and once you've done that only a few times, it in this case, it becomes crazy, because more energy would be being consumed by the AI platforms and the generative AI platforms than anything else on the planet, which is like, what? I don't think we can do that.
Yeah.
So hopefully there'll be a breakthrough. AI, come on, help us out. Help us out with this energy production.
We can work together, I promise.
Get this vision thing working.
Yeah, here. Okay, is there a place you want to go next, Wes?
Yes. Let's go to social media. This was kind of wild, being a WordPress person. So TechCrunch reported on August 28th that Tumblr is going to move 500 million blogs to WordPress. So I don't know how many of our listeners, I'm sure Peggy and you do, Jason, remember Tumblr back in the day. But Automatic is the parent company that acquired Tumblr back in 2019 in a $3 million fire sale. And so in a desire to improve their platform, grow their revenue, they're going to shift the back end over. So apparently Tumblr is still going to have the more simplistic publishing interface that it has relative to WordPress. Matt Mullenweg, if I'm saying his name right, actually posted on his blog, basically, hey, do you want to help us move 500 million blogs? They're going to, hire some new people. And so people are just wondering, how are you going to pull this off? Because this is a huge, massive undertaking. But Tumblr has evidently continued to lose money at the rate of $3 million each year. And so even though they benefited from the Twitter exodus in terms of users, the new users they have really hasn't translated to extra revenue. So Tumblr makes its money through a combination of digital goods, ads, and subscriptions. And I don't really care. I don't know the last time I looked at a Tumblr blog. I know I had some back in the day. I haven't looked at them in over a decade. I do love WordPress. That is absolutely WordPress and Google Sites are my favorite platforms now. Use them every day, but I'm not really caring about this that much. But it is still an impressive headline to say you're going to move 500 million blogs. How many of those are dead blogs, though, right? I bet a lot of those are not being used at all.
Yeah, well, and at one point, I mean, that I think that exceeded Instagram in the number of active daily users, and it
Back
came
in
and
the
it went.
day.
So
Yeah. Peggy's asking, how do we know if we're using Tumblr? Well, it could be a mapped domain, so it's possible that you don't realize it when you're visiting a website. But if you're using it, I mean, you would probably know because you'd have Tumblr in the address, and most fancier websites are not running Tumblr. So anyway, I think it's a bit of a yawn, and they're probably wondering how they're going to get it to make money because losing 30 million a year, that's a lot of revenue to try to make up. So
yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
While we're on social media, this was an interesting article that I ran into. This is Reuters is reporting that TikTok must face lawsuit over a 10-year-old girl's death, and they try to get the website the lawsuit dismissed, but initially the lower court said did block the lawsuit, but an appeals court has allowed it to go ahead, and it's based on a 10-year-old girl died participating in the so-called blackout challenge on the platform. I don't exactly know what that institutes, which maybe tell you I'm not the target audience for these posts. But I
think it was something about asphyxiating or choking and trying to do that on video.
And so the deceased mom decided to file a lawsuit. There we go. Describes what this is, and then initially the appeals court had to hear an issue to figure out if Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act would exempt them as a platform provider, right? So we've talked about this several times in the past, but Section 230 essentially says that if you're Google, you're not responsible for stuff that someone puts onto Google Sites, for example. You're just the harbinger of the messenger, not the messenger itself, and so it gives broad exemptions to companies just like this, but and that itself is very controversial in both directions in 2024. But the court said that because TikTok's algorithm is recommending the dangerous challenges, it should be considered the platform's own speech, which I think is a very clever argument, right? Like, it's one thing if you're on Google and you type something to get to that in a search engine, right? But to say that it's a form of free speech because you're curating.
The algorithm itself is speaking, and you're responsible for that algorithmic, the content that is provided via your algorithm.
Yeah, I read that.
That's nuanced, but yeah.
Yeah, and I rered that, and I was like, that's the most brilliant debate argument I've ever heard, right? But it's very clever, and I've had very mixed feelings about Section 230. It's really, speaking of nuanced, I think it's a 49-51 thing back and forth for me. But the argument that recently made it more complicated for me is that without Section 230, we've allowed the internet to become unaccountable, unlike journalism, right? So journalism is held to much higher standards than the internet is, and it is a huge purveyor then of misinformation because of that. And even though I've been in favor of it, at least in my head in the past, I thought that was an incredibly good argument too. So we'll have to see.
Later in the article, the mother's lawyer, Jeffrey Goodman, is quoted as saying, quote, "Big tech just lost its get out of jail free card," end quote. I think we absolutely need to look at Section 230. It's hard to not consider social media today to be a dumpster fire. Maybe not everything in your channel. I mean, I lost Facebook for a couple weeks this summer, and that was rather painful, and also a chance to reflect on a lot of things. But it just is, people worry that we're not going to have innovation if we don't have Section 230, because the modern internet and social media all evolved with those kinds of protections. we've had these debates about the algorithm. Should you just see a chronological feed? Because this affects YouTube as well, right? If
Yeah.
somebody has learned to create some sort of an explosive, or if someone, got depressed and took their own life, or, did something harmful, those things on YouTube are undoubtedly algorithmically provided. Even if you say I'm searching, the algorithm is still going to suggest things, based upon your search query. And so, yeah, if you open the door to the algorithm being speech, I think that is fascinating. And I also think there's a lot of appetite in US courts to sue Chinese companies like ByteDance. So would guess the politics are playing a role in that as well. But this will definitely be an important one to follow, and hopefully we can follow up on it and see what happens. And I bet that one way to do that might be either Wikipedia, or I'm sure there's some other legal wikis like that are tracking lawsuits and doing the updates. But we're having so much focus with Jonathan Haidt and social media and phones and kids and all that. This has been a continued drum for quite a while, but I think this is a substantial milestone if other courts uphold this, and it's not just a standard that TikTok is held to, but other social media companies, including those owned by folks in the United States, are held to.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
Well, let's do a little bit of Google news, and then maybe we should, although both the Google articles I have are about AI, so who knows, right? The first one, I only want to mention this for a second because I have a broader point. This is from 9 to 5 Google last week on August 22nd. Google Keep is rolling out an AI-powered help me create a list on Android. And I've read about this feature a couple of times over now, but the reason why this is so interesting to me is because I do think our country is having a hard time grasping what AI is. I don't think there's a lot of people that are really thinking very deeply about it. Not because they can't wrap their brain around it, although I will admit this stuff is sometimes hard to wrap your brain around. But I just think there's a lot of other stuff going on in our world, and this seems so futuristic, right? Which is one of the reasons why I have this experience a lot. That I have demos on slides that I share. They're very teaching focused, but even when I'm talking to people that are pretty bright and have kept up on the news on AI, may not be using it themselves. When I show off some of the things that even at very basic level the chatbots can do, they're pretty blown away by it. And not that I inherit any special knowledge. It's just that I've been digging pretty deeply on this for the last year and a half, and so I'm kind of in that space. But it's things like this, and the features is pretty simple. Basically, you can ask kind of a Gemini powered tool, to help you start a list, like a shopping list, or a list of things that are the ingredients for a recipe, or help start a packing list for traveling to the Bahamas, or stuff like that. And that's a cool feature. It doesn't sound all that science fiction-y from the standpoint of it kind of feels like what we were promised with a lot of internet stuff, 10, 15, 20 years ago. But these little practical things that are sneaking into all of our daily tools, right? All the tools now have a little bit AI this or a little bit AI that. I mean, that's the way this stuff becomes, integrated in our lives, whether we choose to do it or not, which is one of the reasons why I think we have to keep digging on this and knowing more about it as a society and culture, because this stuff's everywhere now.
I'll share a quick story. So I'm on the stewardship committee for our church, and we're going to do this book study. Basically, it's a 400-page book. It has 52 different essays, and in about 15 minutes today, I was able to and I tried to use Claude, and Claude said this exceeded its, it exceeded its limit, so it wouldn't do it. But ChatGPT, paid version, no problem, converted the DRM Kindle, which I bought, into a PDF that didn't have DRM, threw it in there, said, please read and analyze. This is a 400-page book. I want categories for these 52 essays, 5 to 10. Boom, gives them to me. Fine. Now I want you to, or I'm talking about a particular theme or verse. Now I want you to give me the 10 that correspond best to this particular theme. Boom, here they are. Oh, wait a minute. Those are all males. How many are female and male? Okay, give me the ones that are, female that do this. And in 15 minutes, I processed this. Now I have not read the book. I haven't read the essays. That's what I'm going to do next. But being able to parse and process with exact specificity a 400-page document, it's a book. It's a 400-page book. That is absolutely amazing. And so the folks at my meeting today were a little impressed, but it was like, this is AI. But it is impressive, and not everybody is realizing that you can do this kind of thing. It also speaks to the importance of being able to access your content without DRM and having tools and ways of doing that. But I think we just need to continue to tell stories about AI and play with it and continue to share those things, because most people, I agree with you. I think most people don't have their heads adequately wrapped around today's AI capabilities.
Absolutely. And, I have a story like that myself, and that leads well. You can tell it's the end of the week. That leads well to another article I have to share, but I'm teaching a class this semester at the University of Montana, and it's the first time I taught this course. I started planning it right after it was assigned to me 3 weeks ago. It's a graduate level course on actuarial research. A lot of fun. So far, I really like the students I'm working with. They're all in early childhood education programs, so that's super interesting to me. And I love action research. It's been a core of kind of how I thought about my profession. The 27 years I've been doing it, but I didn't want to buy a textbook. I didn't want kids to have to buy a textbook. Students to have to buy a textbook. So I looked for open source textbooks, and I found one that was really great. But I wanted to make sure that it had all the topics that I had pre-brainstormed. And so I just put my topic list in, and I put a text copy of it in. I did the same thing you did, Dr. Fryer, except that it was open source. I could just download it without any DRM on it. And then I said, does it cover all these topics, and tell me which chapter and page?
Yes, I did the same thing. Give me the exact pages, and now I'll just make It's amazing. It's amazing.
So, instead of having to read the whole textbook first, I was able to make the syllabus first and have that out and going in time. And now, I'm halfway through the book. I've been checking it as it goes along. It's done an excellent job. For that kind of information processing, it's pretty hard to beat, I think, these large language models. So the story that leads me to is this is from Magic Dev. They're a player in the AI space, and they released a blog post today that talks about how they've been working with Google Cloud, and they think that they have a kind of a line of sight on 100 million token context windows. So to put that, one of the reasons why that all the stuff you have to get out of ChatGPT, one of the reasons why it's prone to hallucination is because you're using its cloud brain, right? You're not giving it any information. You're trying to pull things out of its vast cloud memory, right? And it tries to predict based on the most common circumstances available on your topic what the next word would be in a sentence as it's writing an answer for you. Well, the way you can make that less prone to errors is by providing more information. So like Dr. Fryer is talking about, putting a textbook into it, putting a copy of a document, putting a picture in to feed off that, so it can focus only on your information and use the big cloud brain just for smarts to be able to do it. That's really interesting. And right now, ChatGPT has a tiny context window. Claude has a much larger context window. Google Labs has an even larger context window than that in their experimental models, but none of them are even close. The maximum I've seen is 1.5 million tokens. That's on Google's experimental AI labs. 100 million tokens, which would be the equivalent of a lot of text and paper. And so if it's constantly looking at all this data that you've kind of put together into one piece, that's going to provide some really wonderful opportunities to provide your own data for it to analyze, which I think gets rid of a lot of the big problems with using AI as a tool to write or create or analyze things that are information based.
Wow. That's an example of an article that probably a lot of folks are going to have trouble tracking with, because just the word token is going to throw them for a loop.
Yeah.
We need to keep telling stories. Maybe we should have that as a regular part of our show. One more quick one I'll share. I think I might have mentioned this. Flint AI is the tool that our school has licensed both for teachers and for students. It's flintk12.com. It is ChatGPT with a wrapper that is going to protect student privacy and confidentiality. And it's also going to be somewhat Conmigo tutoring. But I have been having my web students, we're talking about how the internet works and different terms that they need to know. And I'm allowing them to use AI to be able to create visualizations and content for their web pages. And I showed them just this week as we introduced it. Here, let's ask it, explain to me, like I'm a third grader, what an IP address is or what a router is. And that was really eye-opening. It came up with great answers. And so I don't know how many teachers are utilizing that. I'm very thankful that our school has gone ahead and licensed a model that can be used by students as well as teachers. But again, I think it's important to keep telling those stories. So we should set up a collaborative blog, Stories of AI Use, because just hearing somebody else say, well, this is what I got it to do, it can be very enlightening.
Totally. And by the way, I will be offering, I think I mentioned this, but I did get funding from the University of Montana to offer 2 AI playdates in person.
When are those? I got to fly up.
Yeah, good question. In fact, we're going to be scheduling those probably in the next week or two, but we're going to do a 4-hour opportunity for people to come in to the University of Montana campus and play with AI. So we're going to try to invite some folks from Western Montana that we know that kind of filter out into the room and focus on both university staff and then the broader K-12 community, Western Montana. We're thrilled. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's great. That's fantastic. Let's see. You want to keep going with AI?
Yeah, sure. Let's see here. Let's talk about the big news from earlier this week that the California legislature has passed its sweeping AI bill. And that comes after, and we haven't talked a whole lot about this, and part of the reason why I've been ignoring these articles is, to be honest, I didn't think that this had a chance of passing. Like, I know California has a different political situation as it does nationally, but are you telling me there aren't some moderate to progressive individuals that wouldn't be persuaded by big tech in some way, shape, or form? But here it is. We have it's Senate Bill 147. The Safe and Secure Innovation for Frontier Artificial Intelligence Models Act. It's passed the House and Senate in California. And the other news, I didn't throw anything on here about this, but like Elon Musk came out in favor of this. A lot of heavy hitters last week, at least loud voices in the space, said that this is probably not that bad of a bill and we should embrace this kind of stuff. It's surprising to me because what that does tell me just a little bit is that big tech may realize how big of stuff this is, and before it's unregulatable, at least this is a start in the process, which I think is pretty important.
Wow. And it is, fascinating to think about. Okay, so if companies are going to have to adjust now for California, sort of like, Europe with the GDPR and the actually more functional representative democracy that Europe has at this point than we do, we end up with a fractured internet and fractured experiences with the kinds of resources and the compliance, or the bar has changed for everybody, right? Because we've got to change this for California, we've got to change this for Europe. Maybe this changes for everyone. So I wonder what's happened, because some of this dynamic affected hardware, right? This is one of the reasons, isn't it, that Apple has fully gone to USB-C, because there was legislation in Europe, I think, that like mandated that they have to do that.
Yeah, their phones had to have a USB-C port, and for a while, all they were doing was sticking an adapter in the box, which I think met earlier versions of that regulation. And then finally, the answer was, sorry, you're going to have to do this or not be for sale in Europe. And they got a lot of benefit out of moving, I think, personally, but. Certainly interesting development, and we'll have to see if this does anything to slow down the AI train. My hope is yes.
Peggy is asking about catastrophic risks and what is this? So the article starts off by saying that some of the critics, which are including the AI companies, are saying it's overly focused on that. Generally, when they're talking catastrophic risk, I think they're talking about, AGI, artificial general intelligence, the idea that these AI platforms are going to, at some point, surpass human capabilities, run wild beyond our capabilities. They're going to do things that are very destructive to human beings, that it could end our society if these AIs are not only ambulatory, but they're armed. They can replicate, right? So, I mean, if you have these super intelligent entities that can not only replicate themselves in code, but they have factories to be able to fabricate whatever they want and replicate themselves. It is complete science fiction, but it's really not, because the amount of improvement we've seen in this is just incredible. And there's a lot of, I say a lot, there's a number of very, very smart luminaries in this arena that think that we are going to reach artificial general intelligence and that it could end our civilization. So that's what the catastrophic safety risk is, I think. Am I on track there, Jason?
Yeah, and there has also been a lot of discussion about the kind of existential risk to humanity from the standpoint of this would take a longer time period than those scenarios. But what happens if we give up too much brain power to AI, right? Like, certainly we have survived this far with it. Taking things off of our brain, and we've been fine, but. There's a lot of people that theorize that at some point this just makes us dumber as species, and that doesn't always turn out so well for species. So I don't know. We'll see. It's luckily I think I'm not going to see this. I kind of want to, but mostly I don't. My interest in AI still remains that there's a long time before it's going to have a big impact. So I want to make sure that students now are ready for whatever it brings, without going too far down the does this create bigger problems train.
Yeah, and if you do a lot of reading and who's the guy that works for Google now, the Singularity Zone, Ray Kurzweil. Read it, listen to Ray, and read. The forecast is that we really merge with our machines. Kurzweil talks about nanobots and these different robots that are going to be able to go into your bloodstream and do all these kinds of things biologically. But this idea that we are already becoming connected to our machines. However, the interface is slow, right? Because I have to text, I have to type. This is why being able to just speak into the ChatGPT iPhone interface is a transformative thing, because I can, it's bit rate, right? That's bandwidth. The bandwidth of me taking ideas from my brain and putting them into the computer is way faster when I can just talk and it understands basically every word that I say verbatim, and it doesn't misinterpret things. Neuralink and these other platforms that are trying to directly connect the human brain to the technology are going to continue to move forward. And so the future that we're moving into, and again, this is probably not 5 to 10 years, but I think that this is going to happen, is people will basically choose to become bionic. And there was actually a movie we watched on Netflix, and it was okay. But that was part of the theme, is that this person had, in order to save the universe from alien AI technology or whatever, they had to merge and let their brain plug in, and this is like Avatar-ish with like exoskeleton, fighting army suits and all this kind of stuff. It's just wild how it is science fiction, but when you use these tools and you see how good they are, and then you kind of have a small idea of how early days we are with it, it is absolutely stunning to the point where you're like, you recognize this is a different animal. This is I actually have had this sense of sentience in that, this thing is way more than I can be cognitively, maybe not emotionally, not empathetically, but yeah.
Yeah, and Peggy, apparently this is a podcast is directed to you tonight, but Peggy, this is what I think is what makes these conversations so weird. And I know that I'm obviously quite interested in this stuff, but it's a little odd, I think, because I do think this requires a bit of science fiction thinking to think about what these tools could introduce. But I mean, it's an exciting, but then also a little bit of a scary time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Here's one. I didn't throw in too many articles tonight. I changed it to the miscellaneous category. But this is actually, of course, tied to AI as well. This is Wired from August 29th. And the headline is Harmful Nudify Websites Use Google, Apple, and Discord sign-on systems. And so on a positive, it's good, I think, that these single sign-on providers, Google, Apple, Discord, are recognizing, hey, this is a harmful site. But what we're talking about people being able to do is creating non-consensual intimate images. And this is happening in high schools and other schools, where a picture of a classmate, a picture of someone who is real, is put into the system, and they are, put in a very compromising, very objectionable situation. We've had Photoshop for a long time. People have been able to take people's heads and faces and do things, but apparently the ease with which this can be done using these tools is just crazy. So unfortunately, I predict that every high school in the country, in the United States, if they have not already this year so far, are going to soon have this as a discipline issue, where it's not just, sexting pictures and stuff like that, but we have non-consensual pornography that uses the image of other students at the school, and those images are circulated. This is going to be normalized because these tools are so prevalent. It is good that Google and others are cracking down on the single sign-on, but that is not going to stop these kinds of websites. They're being advertised on social media, so depending upon your profile and whatever the creators of these sites want to advertise, whoever they want to advertise to, people don't have to go out and search for these. They're actually just popping up in their social media feed. And this is going to be an increasing problem. So good job that the companies are recognizing it and trying to do something. Unfortunately, it's not going to stop the tide. So It's both a good news and bad news.
Okay, let's see here. Here's an interesting one. This is from Paul Thurrott's website, Thurrott.com, on August 27th. So we're talking about earlier, how unfunctional Siri is. Well, apparently, Amazon thinks it's going to get a lot of people to pay $10 a month to get a quote unquote paid version of Alexa. And I don't know. I feel like that Amazon can't be losing as much money as they seem to be desperately acting like they are on these platforms. It has to be driving some revenue over to the store side, but I just don't think Alexa is worth $10 a month, right? Like,
has she gotten worse? Like I kind of think the Google Assistant has, or maintained, because you still have both in your house, and you have Apple, right?
Yeah, we're mostly Apple now, so that's kind of the direction we've gone into. And part of it was that they're network speakers for me. They're not they're not smart home devices. They're good. They're really well done network speakers, right? And so that's all I really see them as, and that's because Siri is so poor. But Alexa, well, I mean, the Apple speakers were better. That's why I switched. Like that's it, right? End of story. And but I don't know. I don't know of anyone that's actively using Alexa like as a smart personal assistant. It just seems like it's not a part of life.
My perception is the company's really shifted developers and money out of those areas. So that Google, and I've read about this, has de-emphasized the assistant and the Nest and the smart IoT stuff, and generative AI has been a big push. Again, I'm very interested to see what Apple does because there's a real opportunity here. I think we got some good tastes of what a smart assistant could do, and we're really ready, and we're used to like these improvement curves where, oh my gosh, look how much better it is this year than last, or at least it's iteratively getting better. But I think it's really stalled in terms of the Google Assistant and the Google speaker experience. So it's a real opportunity for Apple. I don't foresee myself wanting to switch wholesale, but something I am doing, Jason. I don't know if you're well, you've got the speakers. I don't have an Apple speaker, but I do now talk to my iPhone and say, "Hey S," which would activate if I said that. And like I will, when I'm like getting ready in the morning, I'll be hands free, and I do this in the car too, and just control a lot more to include like resume, even if I'm playing a YouTube video or a Spotify or something, I can pause, I can start again. And I'm really doing a lot more with that in the car as well. So are you just talk to your speaker, I guess, because it'll talk right to Siri, and do you do more than music, I guess?
Not really. I mean, I do. It's a fairly competent. I do miss the fact that I could get on Bluetooth with the old Alexas, and I believe also the Google Homes too, right?
You could, yeah.
Yeah, I missed that part because it means the number of devices I can use for this context is limited. But it sounds great. The iPhone has a feature where if you just walk up to the speaker and you don't have to tap it, just get it anywhere near the speaker, it will offer to put the music on that speaker. So that's really nice and convenient. They're stupid simple in a good way. And I don't need any more functionality out of it just because I know that the major platforms that offer intelligent personal assistants, are pretty meh.
Here is, I guess I added this into the social media category, but I still am really loving Mastodon, which is a federated, open source platform. This is about threads in the Fediverse. So this is from TechCrunch on August 28th. The headline is Threads deepens its ties to the open social web, aka the Fediverse. The Fediverse is a standards-based social media environment. So like HTML and the web and TCP/IP and these things that have standards, email, it interoperates, right? You do not have to be, we don't all have to be on AOL anymore, because we can send email to anybody and receive email. Similarly, if you are in the Fediverse, then you can take your data with you and you can interoperate. Well, part of what this article mentions is that, folks are concerned with Meta getting involved because there's this idea that maybe Mastodon is going to, could potentially become the new Twitter. And it's not just Mastodon. They have PeerTube, PixelFed, Flipboard, which Peggy, I think you're probably maybe a Flipboard user. I've been using that forever on the iPad. It really has embraced the Fediverse strongly. Well, Meta is allowing Threads, which is its, quote, Twitter clone, to interoperate more with the Fediverse. And so you're going to be able to not only see more posts, but in addition to the ones that originate in Threads that are on the Fediverse, but they're allowing for the API to do things. So, and I actually interestingly downloaded today Buffer because I'll embarrassingly say, I think I post to like 8 different platforms now regularly. And most of those are microblogging platforms. Some of them are, Facebook and other things. I've added Spoutable, which I mentioned on the show a few weeks ago, and then I actually have a channel on Reddit just called Learn with Wes. I posted that. So the Threads is allowing API access, and so the reason I downloaded Buffer was, it'd be nice to just, here's my post, and then I can send it to these 6 places or whatever. So anyway, are you using Threads very much? You using the Fediverse much? You're the LinkedIn guy, I think. So is LinkedIn
I am
still
more.
Yeah.
I like LinkedIn. I don't feel like I can have as much of a personality on LinkedIn than I would on Threads or X. I'm kind of back on X, and then I go into it once or twice a week. That's really about it. But I don't know. And Threads is fine. I like the interface. It's simple. It's fast. I already have a lot of connections on there. But I don't know. I still think we should have like a national referendum where all the EdTech people they have a vote, and then we just all decide this is the social media platform we're going to, even if it means going back to X, right? The people have spoken kind of a thing. I don't think it will, but we just need to all decide. Maybe it's even ranked choice voting. Like what or where are we at? Right?
Because it's weird to have lost it, isn't it?
Yeah.
We had such a connection to so many different people, and if you replied, there were all kinds of great conversations and resource sharing that, it's sort of like we didn't go into the dark age, but we definitely went backwards with respect to our interconnectedness.
Yeah. And I just don't feel like people are talking about that very much, right? Like particular for teacher Twitter, it's gone, right? And there's still plenty of interesting people on there, and there's still some folks I respect a heck of a lot that are still on that platform, but a lot of folks are gone. And there was something special about teacher Twitter.
Oh, there was for sure. There's so many ed camps that I went to, and one of the first sessions was always helping folks get on Twitter, and the excitement of, it was, I don't know if you remember helping teachers get on email. I think this was then, 95. It's like the excitement of going to be able to email people. And so Twitter was similarly exciting and dynamic, and there was just Twitter chats. How many? We used to have a Sunday night Twitter chat for Oklahoma. We had people from all over the state, and we had our state which at that time we had a wonderful state Department of Education, I guess, director. Anyway, it's just that's sad. It is sad to have had those real powerful experiences. I'm thrilled that you're doing the AI play dates, and I hope that more folks are inspired by that. And I've realized I have different irons in the fire with school starting, but I've realized that is part of what I want to do on an ongoing basis. Is it basically tell stories about AI, have AI play dates, and offer those. I think both virtually and in person. It's just, I mention things about AI to people, and they sometimes they'll say, I have no idea what you're talking about or what that is. And it's just completely outside their experience. It doesn't have to be, but if you don't have an opportunity to learn more than you will by looking at the evening news or just looking at probably most social media feeds, you're probably not going to get your head around it. So
yeah, totally.
I'm sorry, Peggy. She said her connection's cutting out. So yes, well, we're almost to the top of the hour, so we will.
Yeah, shall we move to our Geeks of the Week?
We certainly can. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I just wanted to note there was a release this week of LibreOffice 24.8, and if you don't know what LibreOffice is, it's a kind of an alternative to Microsoft Office. It provides you a desktop-based word processor. Whoa.
Got some feedback there.
Yeah, it provides you a desktop-based word processor, spreadsheet, and presentation software. It's not the top of the game of any of those pieces, but it's probably in the top 2 or 3 of each one of them, which means that the fact you can download it for free and there's no cloud sign in, there's no data transferred, it's just sitting there on your computer. I download LibreOffice on every machine that I can because it can open stuff that's weird sometimes, or it may have a different way to open a Word document if a Word is being snotty for some reason. But LibreOffice just introduced a great new version. Download it. Maybe you use it, maybe you won't.
And I'll throw this in before my Geek of the Week. You may already do this, but you have some stock searches, and have you tracked how ChatGPT handles it, how Claude handles it to see the improvement over time? I know
Yes, and I also, that's one of the reasons why I have stayed on Poe, because it will run multiple models at once, or you can easily take the same prompt and run it through a second or third model really easily. But yeah, I still use 2 or 3 at a time with almost everything that I do. And sometimes bounce them back and forth, and sometimes have one do one and one do the other. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to it, but that's been my strategy.
There you go. Okay, so my Geeks of the Week, I've got MLA Style Center. How do I cite generative AI in MLA style? And that is the official recommended resource from our school. I also put in the link to ZBib. Use Zotero, Jason, for citations. Zotero.
No, I use PaperPile.
PaperPile. I've never even heard of that. So Zotero is what I have used for writing books and articles and things, but ZBib is Zotero is like a downloadable app and then an extension and whatnot. But ZBib is just easy and free, especially for a web link. But at Books too, just pop it in there, cite, change the type of citation that you want. And I was showing that to my web design kids today and having them use it. And then the last one is not related to that, but it's from NASA's website, Science at NASA. What's up in the sky? And man, there's been a beautiful, what do you call it? Coming together of Jupiter, Mars, and the Moon in the last couple of days. I've ended up, I get up early and sometimes look at the stars. And so anyway, that's super cool, and love to have those NASA resources and share them.
Well, excellent. Thank you, Wes. Hey, where can people find you on the internet?
I am at wesfryer.com. If you go to wesfryer.com/after, I've got a rather exhaustive list of the places where I share online. How about you, Jason?
Best place to find me is LinkedIn, where I'm under Jason Neiffer. So I'm no pseudonyms for me on LinkedIn. And otherwise, that's probably the best place to find. aicentrist.com is my website. And this is the EdTech Situation Room, where a once-a-week podcast, usually on Wednesday nights. Sometimes Wednesday night, when you go to a Pink concert, has to turn into a Thursday night. So I appreciate Dr. Fryer's flexibility in joining me tonight. But if you can't watch us live, we are broadcast over YouTube, where it's archived there. Hang out in our chat room for sure, but you can download it wherever finer podcasts are aggregated, or at our website, edtechsr.com. So stay safe, stay savvy, and we'll see you next week, actually the week after, on the EdTech Situation Room. Good night.
Good night.